Start our study session. I am going to actually, item 5, there will be a public hearing held on July 3rd to talk about the sweeping program. I have item 9, and I'll know by Monday if I have anything ready. Councilor Caldwell.
Thank you, Madam President. Blessing to all. I have items 10 through 23, and I hope we got some parks representative or acting commissioner or, okay, yeah.
Good afternoon, councilors. Steve Harris, City Arborist, Syracuse Parks. Item number 10 is to enter an agreement with Davie Resource Group to complete a 1/7 inventory of our street and park tree population, including planting sites. This is our third re-inventory.
So, not to make things difficult, is there any way you can give us a list? Because sometimes items are on my agenda, sometimes they're on other agenda about parks, about trees, because we got grants coming in. We have, so that we can see like a comprehensive what's going on and what we're spending and what we're bringing out when it comes to the trees and the shrubbery. Is there anything?
The 20,000-foot view of all things trees and money?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you mean?
Yes. Is there any way? Just so we can see, because sometimes I have the agenda items and then sometimes other people have them, and just to see what we are bringing in and putting out. And I know we got a grant out there, hopefully, that we get that is going to, just so we can see like comprehensively, like, oh, we got this moving over here, this moving. Is there any way we could get?
Absolutely. Are you requesting this by Monday's meeting?
No.
Gotcha.
Just so that we can see it, because trying to, put everything together when it comes in different weekly, right? When we can look at it as a whole to see what we're doing. I would like to see it as a council. I don't know if anybody else.
And I know, Steve, we did like the Relief Syracuse a couple of years ago, right? And that may be helpful to send to her as well, too, just so she can kind of see the overall goals.
The master plan.
The master plan.
Understood. We can do that.
Thank you. Yeah, item 11.
Afternoon, councilors. Corey Dunham, acting as Parks Commissioner. Number 11 is an agreement with Henry's Hen House to provide carnival treats at Burnett Park's Cooperative Play Day, which brings together all the summer and year-round community centers for enjoyable, non-competitive events, which are my favorite kind of events. These will be providing carnival treats to those who are in attendance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? Don't go nowhere. Oh, somebody else. Oh, 12. Okay, nope, I thought that was you.
Hello, Steve Harris, City Arborist again with items 12 through 16. Item 12 is authorizing capital dollars for our natural areas restoration program. These funds are used to help us manage our natural areas, mainly removing of invasive species, to improve sight lines and make parks more usable and safe for the general public. One example I can give is if you go to Elmwood at the end of the turnaround where we park, you used to not be able to see the playground from there. So we removed all the invasive species and converted portions to grass just to improve visibility.
Any questions?
What's a hazardous tree considered? Like one that's
Dead trees, dead wood, structurally unsound or splitting trees.
got it. Thanks.
Okay. Item 13.
Item 13 and 14 are requesting the authorization of issuance of bonds for our tree pit improvement program. This we're using to improve the growing conditions of tree pits along our streetscapes. We often, whenever we can, we pair these with the transportation projects driven by engineering to take advantage of mobilization that they're already doing to green up our streetscapes. West Genesee Street is a good example of that, where they redid the water, we're doing the water mains that way, and as part of the streetscape improvements, we're incorporating improved tree pits.
What's tree pits?
Well, think of any of the downtown trees where there's a 4x4 cut out in the concrete. And traditionally, the traditional tree pit, the tree would only have that room to grow, the 4x4. And as you can see from our trees, they're either never successful or the roots find a place to grow, and that place is just under the concrete. Therefore, they heave the concrete, creating a trip hazard. So our goal is to create space for roots so that the tree roots can grow, but not impact that surrounding hardscape, so that we're not
sidewalks.
chasing our tail. Exactly.
So do we know where and what neighborhoods we're going with this?
The focus of this is all the business districts. So, like I said, if we have construction already going on in a business district, often those transportation projects don't include improvements related to the trees. It's just the scope of work is related to the sidewalk, the curb, the road. So this enhances those projects, allowing us to save a lot of money because we don't have to pay a contractor to mobilize to that project. They're already there. They're already digging. But then other targets would be like downtown revitalization initiative. You know, there was money awarded by the state to do street improvements there. So that these dollars would be there to fill in the gaps for the green. Often these road projects, the costs are more than the dollars we have. And this would help make sure that those streetscapes look nice.
I'd like to congratulate that we actually have a strategy involved with this, because we've went through many years of, you know, trees being planted in the business corridors and then having to take them down after a couple of years.
Yeah, definitely there's a lot of departments have been involved in getting us here because we all know it's kind of been going in circles for a while, and we've been trying to figure out a way to make this work.
Congratulations.
The last items are vacant land management, authorizing dollars to improve the condition of vacant lands. Right now, our focus are lands that multiple departments are dealing with over and over. This is a collaborative effort that has landed in parks to oversee, but there'll be illegal dumping, there'll be high crime, there'll be settlements. All of us departments will be dealing with these same lots, and we're starting with ones that we know are not, that NBD has identified as not buildable. And they come to all the different departments. Can you make improvements there? We looked at what other cities are doing to help minimize going to the same property over and over. And we found that the most effective thing is to clear grade, make sites flat grass with trees, keeping in mind sight lines.
How many vacants are there?
How many
How many
vacant
vacant,
will this do? That we don't know. We are going to, our plan with these dollars is to assemble a list of properties, put them out to bid, see how far we can go.
because I know you said they're not buildable. So there's nothing adjacent to anything that we can build on with any of these.
I wouldn't say, thank you, come on.
Hi, Kimon Jordan, Director of Housing and Neighborhood Planning. So these would be lots where adjacent there are no seizable parcels that we could get into ownership.
Okay.
So they're standalone vacant lots. We don't plan to do infill housing either because of the dimension of the lot or because we already have plans for infill housing in the surrounding neighborhood.
Okay, so when you have those lots, you'll give us the number of lots that you're looking at, the vacant?
Yes.
And are we gonna clean them up and use them for side lots for different homeowners?
So these would be permanent green space that are activated by the community. So the best example we have right now is a lot at 625 and 701 Tully. So that's a lot where DPW, codes, NBD parks, we've all received complaints about dumping, everything from tires to construction debris. So what we did, our initial plan was to clean and grade the lots and put up the split rail fence similar to what Philadelphia is doing, but we thought it'd be better to partner with a community organization. So we're bringing in the Peacemaking Center and working with Leah Russell to bring in youth and help them design the lots. So they've already taken part in design charrettes. They're helping determine what trees are being placed on the lot as well as where we're putting the trees on the lot, and then other amenities that they want to see. So they're applying for grant funding for like Wi-Fi charging stations, seating, etc. So that's something we want to mirror across the city.
Come on, also, Sabine Street, there's a few of these places that are traditionally dumping grounds. So I imagine you would get suggestions from the district counselors as far as the vacant lots go and what you want to sort of focus on.
Yes, absolutely. So if you all have lots that are in your districts that you'd like to see cleaned and greened, we can look into ownership, because that does play a big role. I mean, if it's in city inventory or Surrey inventory, we can do a lot more with that, or if they're seizable, we can do a lot more. Yeah, so if you have sites, let us know. A lot of the lots that we've identified now have come organically from community organizations.
Did the housing study identify lots in their inventory?
So the housing study dealt more with housing. This would just be vacant land that's non-buildable, a little unrelated.
When they apply for the grants, is this so the community organization is applying for the grant or the city is applying for the grant?
So this isn't to apply for...
No.
What do you
You
mean?
said that they apply for a grant to like put some stuff in that particular park on Tully. So they're applying for the grant, the Peacemaking Center is?
Yes, they're
Okay,
applying
gotcha.
for the grant.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, thank you, come on.
That is all I have.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Corey? No.
Good afternoon, councilors. Josh Wilcox, Parks Landscape Designer. I have items 17 through 22. 17 and 18 are bond authorizations for our court improvement program. Any questions on that?
I do. So phenomenal. I'm glad and I see the list of courts and parks that we're working on. My only ask is $150,000 going to be enough, because patching them and making them like this isn't fixing them. It's just Band-Aiding them, right? So what are we going to do to make sure, because what's going to happen in another year, we're going to have to do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Once the court is we're putting pavement over a crack or things that doesn't look good, and nor does it stay. So what is our goal to do it right? Even if we do less parks and do it right and could come back and forth, I'd rather see it that way than a Band-Aid on them.
Yeah, that was our scenario with this allocation specifically. We wanted to go after 3 courts. We provided a list of all of the courts, but our 3 top ones are Kirk Park, Onondaga Upper, and Thorndon. This would be complete, I guess would say, not repave or mill and pave like you'd see on the streets, but more of a court job to convert some of the courts to pickleball courts, something we've heard a lot of need for.
Who said they want pickleball court?
I was just gonna ask, who did?
And what
We have
neighborhoods?
a pickleball league right now in the Parks Department. So right now we're using temporary lining, just taping courts. We're looking to do some more of the multi-purpose courts that allow tennis as well as pickleball as well as other multi-use athletic games.
So I think that should have been a definite education of the communities, because you're putting pickleball in communities that have no clue of what pickleball is.
Well, get the neighborhood up around Burnett Park. So
Yeah,
Well, that's Burnett Park, but he said
that's why
Kirk
it's a
Park.
good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's why we wanted to go to Kirk Park as well, because there are 9 tennis courts there. Some of them are in very poor shape, and a conversion of at least 2 of those tennis courts would accommodate at least 4 pickleball courts. And a lot of those courts are just in really poor shape.
Yeah, but who's gonna use the pickleball court? So you're putting, not to say they won't, but you're going into a neighborhood and you're putting a pickleball court in there without asking them, is that what they want?
Right.
Right? And I'm not against it. Don't say I'm against it. I'm just saying, like, does that make sense?
In some of the areas where we want to bring the leagues and expand the leagues to, it would make more sense because we have parking, like at Kirk Park and at Thorndon Park and at Onondaga. There are different parking scenarios, which allows us to accommodate more of those leagues. But also it just makes sense to kind of reduce the amount of pavement that we have that's unused space right now to put a new use there. We're also looking at other court conversions, which this money would count for, which would be bank shot basketball, a different type of basketball game that we could put at almost any court. And then we're also looking at doing some conversions, like cutting some of the asphalt out to create planting spaces. And to
Josh, just to clarify, you're not taking basketball courts out necessarily?
no, we're not taking out any basketball courts.
You're talking about tennis to pickleball when
Yep.
you're talking about conversions?
Yep. And we're starting with Upper Onondaga. We already have a quote in for that, and this would help us with Kirk and Thorndon as well.
can I ask you a question? So Parks and Rec is in all the parks, so we're just gonna say that, right? So when you're in the parks, do you have conversations with the folks, our clients coming in and out of the park? I'm just gonna go back to Councilor Caldwell's question, because the folks coming in and out of Kirk, have you asked them, do they even know what pickleball is?
So a lot of the Kirk Park, because there are 9 courts there, we just felt like it would make sense
I
to.
know you felt like that, but is the
Right.
neighborhood going to utilize?
From what we've got from the community when it comes to the calls that we've received asking for when are we going to get pickleball, everybody else is using it. That's kind of why we wanted to go to the areas that are the most underutilized first. We will go out and educate the community on what pickleball is, what these other athletic multi-use type of games are as well. We did go through it in a Southside engagement session last fall. It was about 3 community sessions, community input sessions, and we only had some people talking about pickleball, but it wasn't a lot for Southside specifically. I will admit that. But Upper Onondaga and Strathmore.
That's a different,
That's,
that's
yeah,
a different
completely
animal
different.
up
Yep.
there.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Now, when you, so if you turn these 2 court into a pickleball court, can they still be usable for tennis if need
Yes.
be?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. The
Mind
first.
explaining what pickleball is? I have no idea what it is.
Yeah, pickleball is more of a side-to-side game rather than tennis is more front and back trying to hit a ball.
Tennis.
Yeah, it's like tennis, but a much miniature, much smaller version.
Like mini tennis.
Yes, with wooden paddles compared to a tennis racket.
Lord, you finna put
And it's more lateral play than it is going front and back and running way up and way back.
Okay.
And you know, I know somebody who's actually a coach, and there's a growing interest apparently.
Because they teach it in school.
Yeah, and it's when you look at, when I spoke with him, he said there's a lot of older adults that
I was
really
just gonna
enjoy
say at
it.
the nursing homes.
Yeah, we've had a lot of our leagues right now are growing pretty quickly. With a
Counselor Paniagua and I were thinking of doubling up on it.
there's a team right there.
We're seniors.
Any other questions about the court improvements?
No comments, Obi.
I do have a question about the court improvements. So I see Dunbar is on your list for
Yes.
the court improvement, but are you guys going to replace the nets over there? Because there's no nets at the moment. So is that included in here?
I will make sure that we get new nets over there.
Okay.
I'll let the superintendent know today.
Okay, thank you.
In a sentiment, Councilor Allen, Dunbar, when going by there, that is, out of all our parks, look the worst, right? So if we can put some kind of attention to, I know it's not on the top 3, but it needs some support, some lines.
Absolutely.
You know, some love over there.
Yep.
In that neighborhood.
I'll get that out today.
Josh, speaking of parks and programs, what about the softball? Is there a softball league in the city?
I can't speak on the programs for softball league, but I can find some answers for you and get back to you.
Okay.
There's Little League Baseball.
Yep.
So, not to against pickleball at Kirk Park, because I'm not saying that, but I know there was a community over there. They have pretty strong TNT in that neighborhood. And they were talking about some gardening. They, mentioned it to me last year. So I just want to make sure that we're also meeting what the neighborhood, especially that Kirk Park neighborhood, what they want in that neighborhood too.
Absolutely.
Okay? So I'm not against pickleball.
Yeah.
I'm just saying let's make sure that we're listening to also what the neighborhoods are saying.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I just want to commend you guys, because when you guys came to Southside TNT, I was there, and the community was very engaged, and 'cause they want to see certain things. And I think the proposals that you guys brought and the suggestion they gave, I thought it was very, very, very interesting and great.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll let our team know.
I was there.
19 and 20, if we're done with 17, 18, 19, and 20 are authorizations for just facility improvements. This mostly relates to some of our fencing and railing needs. The list of the 3 parks for that is on the back.
4 parks.
Yes, for the 4 parks. Any questions on those?
Any questions, Councilor?
And speaking of the south side, we have our authorization for the pavilion at, a new pavilion. It'd be a pavilion at McKinley Park for a neighborhood picnic pavilion that we'd like to build,
That's good.
based on a lot of our engagement efforts.
Now we get some
That
cameras.
they'll use.
And I would get some cameras, get the pavilion cameras. I might smile at that.
Judge, where's it going in the park?
So the pavilion, if you're looking at the bathhouse from the Newell Street side, it'll be on to the right, so on the western side of the park, along the path. Doing the most to not distract from the actual view of the bathhouse.
And Judge, did we ever, because I remember when Julie was here, we talked about, finding like a can that could be chained down and, around the Newell side. Yeah, have we ever taken care of that at all?
I can look more into that, like more of a trash can.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. We're looking at how to keep a lot of these items that we place in the parks, and so those items like trash cans, sometimes they get moved and rolled down a hill. So we're exploring different ways to solidify
That was
it.
the idea. That was the idea because it get moved so much. We talked about maybe finding a chain and chain it down. And with pavilion, it's gonna increase traffic because people wanna come out and enjoy it and sit. So it's probably worthwhile to maybe put a couple of.
We'll definitely explore more trash can options and how to implement them over there with the new pavilion.
Okay, let me stay away from that, right?
That's it for me. So,
Thank
any
you.
other questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Afternoon, counselors. Item 23 is agreement with Peaceful Pets to provide post-life services for dogs and other animals.
Oh,
Could you tell me what that means?
So basically cremation services for animals that do not survive.
Okay. I figured that's what, but I
Yeah,
just wanted to-
I thought, post-life is a very nice euphemism.
Yes.
I like whoever, I can't take credit for that, but I like post-life.
All righty.
Thank you.
Corey,
Counselor,
I'm just wondering how the nationwide search for the Parks Commissioner is going.
it's going well.
It's going well?
It is. We had interviews.
I think some of the, our questions are probably have a lot
Are
less
you, would
questions.
you like to register your dissatisfaction with the current arrangement?
No, I think you're terrific, Corey, but you have a lot of things sort of.
I do, but there's also a really great team at Parks.
You have a terrific team.
Terrific team,
But you don't
but
have a
yes.
Commissioner or a deputy commissioner.
We are still getting applications. We have an interview later this week, so, still putting the plug out there for anybody who might know any interested candidates, but
May I suggest you might have some interested candidates in your department?
yes, and we've received some internal candidates as well.
when did you close that window?
We haven't decided yet.
Why, you sad?
No, we just, it's sort of been a rolling application because we've, for one reason or other, people might not be aware that we're looking or, and so, we've just kind of kept it open and we continue to get more applications. We want to make sure we've got the right team for both commissioner and deputy commissioner.
And, there's an inherent difficulties in an appointed position with 2 years left in an
That,
administration.
we have heard that
You might wanna,
hesitation.
look for somebody inside the department, just a suggestion.
Correct. No, I agree. That has been a question raised in some of the interviews.
Thank you.
Corey, I hate to be a bearer again, but I'm gonna talk about that park. I don't know who's cutting that grass, but they need to be fired.
At the Inner Harbor? Mm-hmm. Okay. Fire contract.
That's good.
I'm just kidding. No, I will reach out to Casey Craig and Chris Cassoni as soon as I'm done here.
That was a good one.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But yes, I sent the photos and I will follow up on that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Corey, before I let you go.
Yes, Counselor.
I just want to say thank you. Thanks for the Parks Department for everything you do. And also, I would like to mention, just real quick, the trash is important because I see if there's no trash cans near, the kids are going to throw it right at the parks. So we got to make sure there's trash can. I'm going to shoot out. Before I was a counselor, I did a program called and reenacted Let Me Great Dunk Your Junk, where You put the trash cans in, you mount them to the ground, you put the backboard behind it, and it encourages the kids, the family to shoot it in, and it inspired them. So I think something of that initiative coming back would be phenomenal.
Agreed. Yeah, I think we need to look at some best practices, and we don't have to go very far to see it working elsewhere in the city. So happy to work with Josh on that.
Thank you. Any other
Thank you,
questions?
councilors.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilor Green.
Thank you, Madam President. Item 24.
Good afternoon, Council. Vicki Voss, Deputy Commissioner of Finance. I'm here to talk about the pay law proposal. I just wanted to boil this down to the simplest process that I can, and the proposal doesn't increase any fees. So even though the current boot fee is $50 paid by the registered vehicle owner, and we're proposing to have that registered vehicle owner pay $161, the city is already paying $161. So what that means is that you and I are paying $111 towards everybody that gets booted instead of them paying their fine themselves. Now you have to understand that we not only give them a parking ticket, but they get 3 notices for each parking ticket. So they've got 4 notifications for each parking ticket, and then you have to have 3 parking tickets. So you've had 12 notices to pay, and then you're subject to booting. So it's, we do everything we can to notify people, make sure that, if they came in right away and paid, they wouldn't have the additional fines that are incurred every time a notice goes out, and they wouldn't have the booting fee. They wouldn't be subject to the booting fee if they just paid their parking tickets. And so it's just trying to redirect the fees that the city is paying to have the registered vehicle owner, who is the person who has decided not to pay the parking tickets, to have them pay the penalty.
So what changed from this changed from last time?
No? I'm just trying to explain it so that it's more clear that it's no additional
I think we
fee.
understood it. It wasn't that.
Oh, okay. Well, I'd actually talked to President Hudson, and she was concerned that we were charging more to the constituents, but we're just redirecting it to the constituent that actually got the ticket,
So you're redirecting it, so you are charging more, so.
rather than you and me paying it. It's the same fee.
Other questions on this?
Do we charge non-city residents more for a parking ticket than we do city residents?
No, the parking ticket is the same price, but what we're proposing is to add a $50 administration fee to the booting process for non-city residents. So in effect, we're not charging it to city residents, we're just charging it to non-city residents.
We get more city residents getting booted than non-city residents.
That's true.
70%. My big issue behind this is the fact that we still haven't fixed our issue, right? So we want to make the constituents be accountable, but we're not accountable, right? As multiple times I've seen it myself, witnessed the machine's not working, it won't take money, it won't take dollars, nothing's printing out.
Well, but then if...
No, let me finish. So I get it, right? But for us to just say, okay, we want to make a change, we probably are going to have to raise it, but we need to fix in-house first so that we can be reassured that the community that, okay, our machines are up. We got somebody checking them. The paper's there. When they come and put the dollar, I watched a guy come out here and tell the officer, look, the machine doesn't work. The officer had to give him money to put it in there. You know what I mean? So, like, there's a lot of glitch that we know need to be fixed before we start just...
Well, but to your point, and I don't know if Leah's here. Leah is here? We do everything we can to address issues, and Leah can probably speak to this a little bit better, with Sergeant Romaine and others, where there are problems with the parking meters, and to not give them tickets in the first place, or to allow them to dispute the ticket, and then they don't owe the ticket.
Hi, Leah Whitmer, Director of the Parking Violations Bureau. So in regard to the meters that we're having issues, DPW has been working, and out of the 300 meters, over 225 of those have been replaced, or the new ones have been ordered. Obviously, there's some supply chain issues. For a while, when you're saying they weren't printing, we had a printer issue that wasn't compatible. Those have all been replaced. So the majority of machines out there should be new functioning machines. We also, my department has cross communication with DPW and SPD. So anytime a constituent calls us saying there's a broken meter, I can't pay, we log it in there. DPW sends someone to take a look at it. SPD, the parking checkers, can see that that isn't working and know not to issue tickets there. And if somebody does get a ticket, we've got a log of that. And I expedite the process, and I will adjudicate those myself as long as I have some proof that the machine is broken. So I don't make people even fill out the entire hearing request form. So we've been trying to be very constituent forward-facing in that to make the process as easy as possible. Anybody else can always fill out a dispute form. They're right on the website now. You can go in and fill it out through open forms on the website. So I think that saying we need to work out those issues isn't a fair assessment, because I think we have. And like Vicki said, we've got all of the notices she laid out. I'm working on another notice, so there'll be an additional notice that they get, making sure everything is up on the website so that people understand. And the one thing that I think Vicki pointed out before is anybody, before they get booted, have the ability to enter into a payment plan. So anybody that calls us, anytime my staff is talking to them, they're being advised you can apply for a payment plan, which if you qualify can be as low as $25 a month, regardless of how many tickets you have.
What are the qualifications for a person to do that payment?
It's, what's the payment plan is what percentage of income? It's an income to expense ratio. I would say the majority of people,
We haven't issued that, we're just doing a minimum of 25. Is
you're not reviewing it. So they're all $25 a month right now because,
That's the minimum.
So a person can come in and say, okay, can I enter?
yep, they fill out an application on a pad that the City Payment Center has, and that's been enacted for a couple of months.
When the boot comes off?
No, they have to do it before they get booted.
Before they
Before. So Vicky's saying you get a ticket, you get 3 rounds of notices. So at any point, you can reach out and apply for a payment plan. If you're on a payment plan, the ticket's not in collections, you're not eligible to be booted.
Is that slip also included, is that wording or education included with the notices that they get sent in the mail?
It is on the payment plan information, I believe is on the notices. I would have to double check. I'm in the process of editing and updating all the notices so that our website is on there. Link to the online portal where they can fill out the dispute form is on there. So I can double check and get back to you on the payment plan.
Speaking of disputes, I had a lot of people call, just saying, hey, I was on the way back to my car, maybe the time went over a minute or 2, but I had to walk from here to where my car was, and I got a ticket on my car. Are those disputable? Is there a policy that says that there's a grace period? Is there a grace period, or is there, anything just?
There is an unofficial grace period, but they would have to formally dispute it. And then the hearing examiners have, it's not in the ordinance or the law, but we do have a grace period policy.
What would be the supporting evidence to show that they showed up 2 minutes later? Like, how would they prove it? How would they prove to you they just got there 2 minutes from the time that they received?
When the ticket was issued? If they have anything to submit, like, hey, I went through, the drive-through at McDonald's and I have this receipt, or I went to this, or, if somebody's,
Take a picture.
verifying, a picture that, people do come in and show pictures, and sometimes, again, if I'm there, I can handle it on the spot, or I'm working to increase my hearing examiner staff, so we'll have somebody essentially on call, where when you walk in, you don't have to fill out a form, you can just meet with a hearing examiner and they can take care of it right there.
So Leah, how much is a parking ticket with the late fee? How much is that?
It varies by violation.
Okay.
Each violation has a set fine associated with it. So for instance, an overtime parking ticket right now in the summer is $40. And then there is the initial penalty is going to be double that initial fine. And then the second penalty is going to be $30, and the third penalty is going to be $40.
So you're up to $150 for the third, by that point, for that $40 ticket, plus the $161 boot fee. So that's $311.
But you'd have to have 3 tickets, yeah.
Okay, so I think my addition's right. So that's about $300 with the boot fee. So if someone gets booted and doesn't have that $300, we don't offer a payment plan at that point?
No, because the boot is the incentive. That's our collection mechanism. That's the incentive to get people to pay. Like Vicki said, they've ignored the ticket. They've ignored 3 rounds of notices for each of those tickets.
So if someone has $311 worth of fees because of that boot, and they come in and say, I have 100 today, and can you set me up for, we say no to that?
We say no unless the amount is over $1,500. If the amount is over $1,500 based on our local ordinance, they can put the $1,500 down. Does that include the 161 flat fee? And then the rest they could enter a payment plan into at that point. But if it's under $1,500, they have to pay the full amount. And I will say I've been trying to push the boot stuff off to Vicky, right? Because those people aren't happy. They're in a tough situation, and the payment center is, you know, there's nothing they can do to adjudicate those tickets at that time. You have 90 days to adjudicate a ticket. So then they move on to the payment center. And, you know, I don't know the percentage of people that get towed because they don't get the boot off, but it's a small percentage. Most people are able, you know, one way or another to come up with the money.
In the notification you sent out for them to pay their tickets, do you tell them in that letter that there's a program that they can apply?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if the payment plan language is in all of the notices yet. I'm working on it, but it's, you know, it's only a couple months old, so I'm working on getting it in there. I think some of them have it, but not all of them have it yet.
And then just to circle back about Councilor Cutler's question, does DPW go out and check regularly on the meters?
Yes.
Even the new ones?
Yeah.
To make sure that they're functioning?
Yeah, they have assigned people, that at least one assigned person in DPW. Off the top of my head, I'm blanking on his name. Yeah, and we, like I said, we have a you know, a shareable Excel sheet across all departments, and including the payment center, that any of my staff that get a call or any of Vicky's staff can plug in. You know, if someone's on the phone, we say, what's the meter number? If not, what are the cross streets? What's the business nearby? We plug it in so that DPW can send someone. And if I get multiple complaints, like in a day or a week, I text them to say, I text Joe DeBello at DPW and say, hey, I've gotten multiple complaints about this one. Can you make sure someone goes out now? And same thing with Sergeant Romain. I let him know. Can you let the checkers know that, you know, for whatever reason, these meters are down? So I would say we have pretty good cross-departmental communication on the meters.
Well, just item 45 is $500,000 to spend on parks, right? For
45, you jumped to 45.
You know, I jumped to 45 because I saw it earlier. I mean, obviously, we're still trying to, like, repair meters and everything. I mean, but no, I mean, we're backing up, obviously, you know.
I mean,
we're
things,
making an effort.
things break. Yeah, but we are making an effort. But I mean, that's mainly just things break sometimes.
But also, yeah, it seems like you're addressing when there's a broken meter, you check to make sure, and then you.
Well, I let DPW know and they check. I'm not going out there to check.
When they get reimbursed, or how's that work as far as the ticket goes?
That they would, the ticket would be adjudicated. So if I know, I'll void it right off the bat. And then if it, you know, some people are obviously, it's going to go through the formal adjudication process, and that would be reviewed by a hearing examiner. And as long as they take the testimony or evidence of the constituent as credible, they would dismiss it, including any penalties that have accrued. And one more thing. Once a ticket, as soon as somebody contests a ticket, even if it's not going to go into collections, right? It stays in adjudication pending until my office has issued a decision. So those tickets aren't going to make anybody boot eligible.
So okay, I was just going to suggest, I mean, I think some of our questions, which are good ones, are broader DPW, how do we do parking enforcement, and that it may make sense for Councilor Gathers and I to do a committee meeting on that. But if there are specific questions on this specific item, which is just about shifting the fee from taxpayers to the offender, let's see if we have any more of those. Yeah. And then, okay, go.
I'm totally against it until we fix what we have to fix. We have 225 machines that we just fixed. How many more do we have to fix?
My understanding from DPW, again, but this is, I think it's more of a DPW issue, right? I'm not the expert on the machines, but it's my understanding there are 300 machines that they have ordered new machines for 225, and I think that they're going to reduce it from 300 to 225 because they don't feel they need that machine, spacing out the distance of the new machine. So of those 225, I don't have an up-to-date account on how many are in there, but I know at least 200 have been installed. They were waiting for the shipment of the 75 of the final order that the council had already approved previously because of storage issues. They need to put the machines in before they order the next round. I don't know if we are up to 225 in, but they've also, anytime they're installing new machines, they're being very specific about where they're placing them so that you don't have old machine, old machine, old machine. There'll be a new machine there.
Plus, people get parking tickets for more than just the parking machines, the ticket machines.
yeah.
So odd even parking, fire hydrant, handicap, so.
Tons of violations, and I mean, I think it's really important in any city, but especially a city of Syracuse. You know, summer's gonna go by quick. We're coming up to winter. Odd even parking is a big problem. You know, other types of parking downtown that are legal. So again, you know, people are getting the notices. They can reach out. I've got staff manning the phones to answer any questions from 8 to 5. The information's on the website. The dispute form is on the website. By the time they get to a boot, they have chosen to ignore at least 4 notices on every ticket. And that's at least 3 tickets, so that's 12 notices.
I consistently get calls on parking violations, especially parked on both sides of the street. In the wintertime, some of our congested neighborhoods, it's a real safety hazard, as we well know, fire hydrants, fire engines and things, so.
I have a specific question about the non-resident, again, the extra $50. So how do you determine what a non-resident is, where the car is registered? Or, because I've got constituents, one in particular that I paid the boot for and they paid me back a week later, that was registered in Redfield, New York, but they've lived on a street off of Burnett for 10 years.
We can only go by the data that is provided by the Department of Motor Vehicles. So if people don't have current data, I don't know what to say.
But if the intention is to, you know, make our non-residents pay more, these are our residents, so
if
I think you
there-
should change
if
the
there is
wording
someone
to
that
vehicles not registered in the city of Syracuse versus non-residents.
That's the whole point, is they aren't registered in the city of Syracuse.
But we have residents driving cars that are not registered in the city of Syracuse.
So, like Vicky's saying, when we're considering resident or non-resident, it's based on the DMV information on where the
Understand
car is. So, like you have a lot of college students, right, that the vehicles are registered to their parents. So maybe they're living in the city at SU or at Lemoyne, but you could not believe the number of parents that call me
But they're
about tickets for their
but they're
kids.
residents of the city of Syracuse.
They're
be it
residents, but their
temporary or
car's not registered here.
So then
the notices are going
Then
to
I
the.
think the legislation should say.
But the
cars that are
notices,
not registered in the
the
city.
notices are going to the registered owner. The registered owner is the one responsible
I
for
understand.
paying. So the student that lives in the city of Syracuse has no legal obligation other than they want to get the boot off because it's their car, but their parents are the ones getting the notices and responsible.
All right, we got to move on. We'll have to hold a DPW committee. A lot of these questions are not related to this, but I think people want to get those questions resolved. So let's do a DPW committee meeting and whatever we need to do.
Because it's about adding more money to something that we haven't got ourselves together. I'm all believing making sure that if somebody's violating parking on an egress, anything, that is absolutely. But when it comes to machines not working and people being charged and older people got a call and all those things, let's get our part together so that we can be great. And then we can say follow the rules, but we're not even right. And then we're expecting people to be right. So that's my sentiment.
Okay, he's
How you
on
doing?
it.
25.
So,
Frank Oliva, the city's chief administrative officer. It is really hard to beat the excitement of the Parking Violations Bureau, but I'm going to try. 25, 26, and 27, as I said in an email to the council yesterday, this is the beginning of the conversation about the next phase and the beginning of an accelerated phase of upgrading our core system. So the core system is currently PeopleSoft. We use PeopleSoft primarily as our finance and accounting system. There are finance and accounting modules that we have never turned on or fully turned on of PeopleSoft. But more importantly, as you all discovered during the course of the budget hearings, we have never turned on any of the human resource information system, human capital management, whatever the current terminology is, in PeopleSoft or in any other system. So what we've spent a couple of years looking at our current system. We've spent time with some consultants, both Deloitte and Ernst & Young, a considerable amount of time looking at what the alternatives are. We've spent time and money looking at what the future of PeopleSoft is. We have spent a considerable amount of time with our current partners, the county and the school district, both of whom admittedly have made different decisions about where they're headed with PeopleSoft. And now the city is ready to move forward. The purpose of what we're requesting right now is primarily to develop and integrate a new payroll system, which is desperately needed. AS400 doesn't even come close to working for us any longer. And a human resources information system, which, again, as you all discovered during the course of the budget, doesn't exist. That's the two primary focuses. We will also, in the course of the proposed engagement, start mapping out where we're headed for finance and budget in the future. So we're looking at this next phase being somewhere between 5 and 6 months, at the end of which we'll know where we're headed and we'll be very close to a new payroll and human resources system. So,
Frank, question for you.
Certainly.
Why, and I'm just curious, and I'm gonna ask this for a lot of these, why are we always waiving the competitive bid?
So that's a great question. In this case, we're going with Advance IT as the prime contract. They're a local IT contractor that we do business with on our master services contract. They are subcontracting to Ernst & Young. Ernst & Young did the preliminary work that got us to the point where we are now, where we were able to define the problem and pretty much define where we think we're headed, which is to a new Oracle product. And so we want to continue with Ernst & Young. So this was competitively bid in the beginning when we first engaged Advance IT and Ernst & Young. There were a number of both local and national firms that bid on the business. Ernst & Young received the winning bid, and this is basically a continuation of that
Okay,
work.
so it is just a selection that you made, so you didn't put the competitive bid back?
That's correct. We didn't go back to competitive bid. No, let me be clear. We didn't go back to competitive bid. We did competitive bid for the first phase. This is a continuation of that first phase, so we'd like to continue with Ernst & Young.
On this video topic, but we talked about coordinating a meeting with human resources.
Yep, absolutely. I suspect that there's a lot of conversation that we need to have about this. It's a lot of money, it's a long process, so I'm happy to go into a committee meeting or anything else that
And that'll be good, because once we're done, when we're talking about PeopleSoft, PeopleSoft outdates you. It was way before you got here, so we're still talking about PeopleSoft. We're still adding on pieces to the tune of millions of dollars to PeopleSoft. When are we done?
I would like to be done in the next 20 to 24 months and say PeopleSoft is no longer our core system.
And that's a good point to Madam President's point, because could we not just do this in like a bundle to say, okay, this is what we need to make that switch? Or
I wish we could. We're trying to do it as expeditiously as possible. It's a big change. It's a big change both from a functional and a system standpoint, and it's a big change from a people standpoint. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. So we're going to do it as quickly as we can. EY has us, I think, on a schedule that's about as aggressive as we can swallow. Again, payroll first, human resource information system right on the heels, and then into finance and budget, and probably optimistically 24 months.
So Frank, could you do me a favor, and I want to go all the way back. I want to know the total cost that we've put into PeopleSoft.
We can try. A lot of it has been in-kind service from
I know about the in-kind.
the good graces of the
We put a lot of
county.
millions into it, too. I'm
No
not
question.
talking about in-kind.
Yeah,
I wanna know
absolutely.
how many millions
Yeah.
we've invested in
Yeah.
PeopleSoft.
And candidly, we'll put millions into getting out of PeopleSoft or wherever we go next. These systems are just extraordinarily expensive. But it is, PeopleSoft, I agree with you, has outlived its
Because 10
usefulness.
years ago, I mean, by the time we added up, we're probably $20-30 million in.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised. We'll do the best that we can to pull all that together for you. But yes, we're absolutely ready to engage with the council on getting any of that information that you're looking for, the next steps. So
Thank
we
you.
know this is just the beginning. Thank you.
Frank, quick question. You talked about the HRIS and then the payroll, and are they all different software trying to put together? Or?
So right now, the recommendation is that they're different modules of the same family of software. So we would be going to, PeopleSoft theoretically is a full suite of software with different modules. We'd be moving to similar setup. So there's an umbrella called Oracle Cloud. Okay. It has different modules. There's a human resources, there's a payroll, there's an accounting.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 28.
Changing my hat on this one. This is IT InDev. This would be the third engagement with InDev. Some of the council may remember the first engagement was a couple of years ago. They did a engagement with us gratis. We paid them nothing. They came in and evaluated our legacy IT organization and IT systems. When I say legacy, I call it ports, pipes, and PCs, so the network, the endpoints, the computers. They did an evaluation for that. We then engaged with them a second time, a small fee, I think $20,000. They spent about a year working up a remedial program for us, so how we can completely restructure IT. This is an engagement for a longer term for them to help us implement all of those recommendations. So they would be working alongside our existing IT folks, helping us rebuild our entire legacy IT.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Item 29, Kraus Marshall. Who's the, is there anyone here to present that one? It's here for downtown.
Kraus and the downtown committee.
Why don't we just do downtown and then we can talk about Kraus Marshall on Monday if we need to.
So I'm here representing both.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Great.
Yep. Any questions?
Just, I mean, this is the annual, it's approved in the budget, the funding that goes to those
Right, just
committees.
an explanation.
Sure. So the operating budget was previously approved in the budget hearings, and this is just the authorization to Cross Marshall Business Improvement District and Downtown Committee of Syracuse, respectively, to administer both of those contracts.
We normally receive like a report, don't we?
During the budget, we normally get that.
Yeah, you're not with this one. This is the annual.
Any other questions on these two?
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Heather Schroeder, Downtown Committee of Syracuse Deputy Director.
Thanks, Heather.
Okay, thanks.
Item 31.
Good afternoon, councilors. Lisa Romano Moore, Executive Director of the Onondaga Historical Association. Regarding item number 31, in the amount of $25,000 to the Onondaga Historical Association to serve as city archivist and curator of city historic documents and assistance with the Landmark Preservation Board.
Any questions on this?
Is that money enough? I know we asked that question a lot here for other things, but I know that last year they talked about all of the records they're going to be transferring to, and it seemed like a big haul.
It's a lot to maintain all of the materials we have. It's a lot to maintain our building and provide the staffing. So $25,000 is very generous. We would love to have more. but I know that there are limits of what the city council can allocate towards us. But we'd be happy to discuss more detail of what we would request to utilize this money for. If there is an interest, we could present it committee if that's helpful.
Thanks.
Lisa, I remember when Greg was here and
Yes.
we spoke about, especially archiving stuff from I-81, the
Yes.
15th Ward, and,
Yes.
the history of refugees and all of this. And I don't know how much of that he, is, where are we with that? Are we good? Are we on the process of making sure those are accessible digitally and all of that?
I think we're in between the stages of being able to digitize and just collecting on paper. We do have some oral histories that we've recorded. We would love to do more of that work with the refugee community and other communities that aren't represented as deeply as our older historical record keeping at the archives. But that's work that is consistently a priority for us. And we would love to work with you to do more of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
You too. Thank you very much.
Item 32 and 33 will be discussed in executive session on Monday, and those are items.
Thank you. Councilor Paniagua.
Can I use this? Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I have item number 34. This is a grant not to exceed $300,000 to build urban opportunity work readiness programs in collaboration with CNY Works.
Good afternoon, Council. Janet Burke, the Director of Research. Yes, this is a grant with the U.S. Department of Labor, which Syracuse Build is going to be our subrecipient, and they are going to be working on an urban work readiness program for construction, for the upcoming construction projects.
So did we already apply to the grant, or is this to apply and?
No, yeah, what ended up happening is this came in and it went very quickly and we didn't get the letter in. I sent a copy last week.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
So, but yeah, it's usually we come to you before we apply.
Thank you.
I would like to say, thank you. I know all the work, all the grants. Thank you. I think you got one other person, right?
Oh, actually, I have a couple more now.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're really building
Moving up in the world.
capacity. Yeah.
So Janet, if I'm not mistaken, you're saying this is not an application and agreement, right?
Right, no, this one is just enter into an agreement.
So legislation do need to be changed, Patrick, just FYI.
That's why I asked the question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Okay,
thank you.
Councilor Gathers.
Thank you, Madam President. Items 35 through 55. 35, what do you want to do? We're going to hold 35.
Okay.
If I could just make a statement.
Yes, sir.
This is not a time to raise parking rates in downtown Syracuse or in any downtown across the country. The vulnerability of downtowns after the pandemic. We just had another restaurant close. So I will vote against this regardless of any kind of meeting or anything, so.
Me too, agree.
All right. Item 36.
Ann Fordock, Deputy Commissioner, DPW. This is for the sweeping program. We are going to have the public hearing on July 3rd.
Okay. Thank you. Item 37.
37.
Has anybody any information on that?
37, 38,
And you better hold it again.
39.
All right.
So back to 37, 38. My friend.
39.
Yeah, I'm like, here we go. Tap me in. So listen, not that I'm not for cameras. I'm 100% for cameras, but until we have an idea of where the cameras are coming in the community first, before the creek walk, I'm not okay with it. And I definitely vote no. So, we hold it, whatever, I'm just letting guys know now.
We need to decide.
So just to clarify, Counselor, on the information that's still missing, so in addition to what SPD has sent, right? Because SPD sent
Yeah.
where all the cameras currently are and the ones that are coming. So so I just want to make sure we
So-
get you the right information.
So what's the problem is, we're rushing this, obviously, because you guys want it done now, right?
Well, I mean, we're not rushing it. It's on the agenda, so we'd like to, it's in the capital plan. Yeah.
Right, so it is next, and we still haven't discussed what the parks, we don't know when those other cameras coming in. We're working on grants for those other cameras, right?
So it's getting the money, so the state is funding those cameras, the cops cameras, so it's waiting for the state to give us the money. So it's outside of our control, it's my understanding. I don't want you to speak for SPD, but we're waiting for the state funding to come through for us to install the cops cameras, but we're already moving to get the contractor in place, that once we get that money, we'll install our own poles, we'll put the cameras on our own poles, so we don't have to wait for Verizon or National Grid. And then the parks cameras, I'm looking at parks capital budget to see if there's money in there to do it this year. If not, it would be part of parks capital budget for next year, which would be in effect in January.
I wanna say, but I really have disbelief. I'm just being honest, because why aren't we trying to use ARPA money or get reimbursed? If we know the state money is coming, and we know we need these cameras, then why aren't we just doing it? Why are we waiting? That's my point.
I just want to make sure that we're getting you the information that you need. So the question is,
I get it.
yeah,
I
is why
totally
don't
get
we
it.
front the money and then
Yeah,
get
what are we waiting
reimbursed?
on? We know how imperative it is in our community. People are getting shot, people are getting stabbed. There's crime rate is beyond, but we're saying, oh, the state. If we have the money, why can't we upfront the money and get our money back from the state? Let's put that as priority one.
Okay,
That's
I'll talk to the team and see if that's an option for us and get back to you with that information.
And Corey, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
You said we're gonna put in our own polls. So has there been a conversation with National Grid?
To tell them that we'd like them to move more quickly?
Yeah, whatever it is we need.
Yeah,
to-
I mean, we've communicated to National Grid, we would like them to move more quickly so we can get these cops cameras installed. You know, it's obviously not only National Grid, but they're a major player
But they're the
in it.
major ones, and see, that's where I'm going with this, because as legislators, we do talk to everybody, okay? And I had a conversation with National Grid, and basically, I don't know who's telling me what, but it's being told that you guys need to reach out and have a conversation with them. So,
I mean, I don't want to speak for the police department. I would assume that the conversations have been had with National Grid to communicate the urgency, but that doesn't mean we
maybe it needs to come
can't.
from the administration to the top of National Grid.
That's
and
fair.
not the police department.
Okay. All right, I'll see if any conversations have happened, and if they haven't, then we'll have them again. Absolutely. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, counselors.
Thank you. Item number 40.
So, you know what you're gonna do with those, or you're just gonna wait and decide?
We'll hold for now, and then we'll discuss maybe possibly Monday where we go.
Decide what you're gonna do, okay? It's gonna
37, 38, and 39.
hold with a question mark.
All right, item 40.
Good afternoon, councilors. Mary Robinson, city engineer. Item 40 is a request to grant an easement to Niagara Mohawk and to Verizon New York for electric service and telecommunication service for the school district's network operations center at Shea.
Any questions? No questions? Thank you.
Are they cutting the block out, cutting the squares out? They're gonna put it back, right? Or do they have to cut the road, or no?
This is mainly on school property. They're installing a pole. They are doing some underground conduit and then a transformer pad. So yes, they will have to restore the school property.
All right. Item 41 and 42.
So 41 and 42 is the bond, and then the authorization agreement with the county. It is for green infrastructure, and it is to get reimbursed by the county for the project.
Any questions?
Is there more detail on specifically, that's the striping project as well, right?
This specifically is for the green infrastructure. Lodi from Pond to Mary. And this is for, say, infiltration trenches, manholes, things that correlate with the Save the Rain green infrastructure projects. That's what this is specifically. I am not sure on the full depth of your question there, so.
Okay, I know there's a striping project, and they're gonna add bike lanes, and they're gonna move parking to one side of the street 24/7, so I just haven't seen the whole plan, and I wondered if you had any more details on that.
I don't, but we can definitely get that to you.
Okay, that'd be great.
Any other questions? All right, item 43.
So 43 is for the disposal of our street sweeper waste that we take to the town of Camillus. And this is just for another year's agreement with them.
Any other questions? All right, 44.
44. And so this is for traffic signal controllers, cabinets, or repairs for traffic signals. And this is proprietary. So this is who we use for that service.
45.
It's another proprietary one. And this is for the multi-space pay stations parts. This is the one that Councilor Hogan mentioned earlier. So just to be able to continue to fix parking meters as they break.
But we're phasing parking on and Duncan out, right?
Correct. We are replacing. We're still going to need, repairs as we move forward and parts as we move forward.
So we're gonna spend $500,000 to get the parts on what we're phasing out.
I don't know if some of these companies overlap with the new company. Pardon?
What do you mean you don't know?
I don't know off the top of my head the new company.
Well, the new company is not Parkeon, and I don't believe it's Duncan, because those are from my whole tenure on the council. So if we're doing new ones.
Six different companies here. One of them might be.
Well, could you find out, please?
Yeah,
we can do that.
Because the legislation says what you see. So if any of those change, is
Yeah, gotcha.
so okay.
Because I hate to spend that much money on something we're getting rid of.
So we'll hold on 45, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
All right, 46.
46. So the waiver for requests for emergency traffic signal fiber optic repairs. This is the only local vendor that performs this type of work. And when we have an emergency, we have to call them. So that's what this one is for.
Any questions? All right. Item 47.
So this one is for hard fill. This is disposal when we have to dig up the ground or pavement. So we use TH Kinsella, and they charge us $2.25 a ton for disposal.
Any questions? 48.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Awald, the Water Department. Number 48 is a time extension to our contract with GHD for the Morningside Reservoir. It's purely time, no cost addition at this point in time.
Let me ask you a question, Commissioner.
Yes.
Are we even using Morningside Reservoir?
There are 3 tanks up there right now. We are utilizing 1 out of the 3. We found, over the last year, we found some leaks in the underground piping from tank to tank. So the specialty work to line those piping that meets the water quality standards that we need. We've only found 1 or 2 contractors, and that's been kind of the delay, is getting that contract work scheduled.
Because we on the money right now, right? We're looking at dollars, right?
Correct.
And I know that Morningside, how much did we invest in Morningside? $2.5 million?
With the new roof, $2.5 million, yes.
And we're still only using 1 tank?
Yes. Because we put the tanks back in service once the roof was completed. We found the leaks that were coming out of the middle and south tank.
Do you have a time frame when that's going to
Right.
So we have the work scheduled for this summer. Our goal is to have it all completed and back up and running before the end of fall.
Okay, so Morningside will go back online.
That is our current game plan, providing no other leaks show up. that
Okay,
we've
and so
identified.
we're up to close to $3 million, so we don't need no more money, right?
Correct. Just a time extension at this point.
Okay.
Any other questions? 49, please.
Number 49 is a time extension, no cost for our CMMS implementation of our Phase 2 components of the software. This tracks all of our work orders and service requests that come into the department. Any questions?
50.
Number 50 is a increased cost for our intake extension project. As part of the project, as we started kicking off the project, we identified that we wanted some additional soil borings done in the lake to identify the materials at the lake bottom. Also, we hired a public engagement firm as part of this project. Being a large public project, we wanted to make sure we are on top of any kind of public questions or awareness that's going to be coming up as part of the project as a whole. Any questions?
We don't get any reimbursement for that from the state or?
For this project?
Mhm.
For this project, we haven't gone for any kind of grant funding yet. A lot of the grant funding comes in for construction services and construction itself. So once we get to that component of it, we will be applying for grants, and that's where the big dollars come in. Any other questions?
51.
51 is our annual IMA with the Onondaga County Soil and Water Conservation District. We do this as part of our annual Skinny-Atlas Lake Watershed Agricultural Program. Any questions?
52, 53, and 54.
52 is authorized Type 2 declaration for the Mosley Pump Station project. That project we're looking at going to bid for construction this fall. Would include a new pump station for Mosley Pump Station. Will also include approximately 8,000 feet of new water main and over 325 new water services near Henniger High School. Any questions?
Commissioner, just one. I just want to ask you this, right? Because I know we've put a lot of money into these different projects. And I know that it's going to be a continuation because things break, things need to get fixed. But at some point with the new roofs and the new liners and all the new stuff we're putting in, it should stabilize them all at some point, right?
Stabilize the system as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So we've tackled a lot of the big mechanical things like pump stations we've been going after, because those are pretty important, because once the pump station goes down, there's no way to provide water to that pressure district. The system as a whole is very old, and we are replacing components such as the pump stations that haven't been updated since 1960. So we're doing it piece by piece by piece, so it's going to be a long endeavor. We're putting a lot of investment in, so at one point we will just be maintaining and we won't be completely replacing.
At all the pump stations and the reservoirs?
So a lot of the pump stations, yes, haven't been touched since the 60s. Reservoirs, Morningside Reservoir was the last one that really wasn't updated in the last 10, 15 years.
Because I'll probably be gone by the time you get finished, but at some point, I mean, I'm just looking for the longevity and the sustainability, because I mean, every other year we can't keep dumping millions and millions and millions of dollars.
So we're just, we're going after each project one at a time, so it's not a big, huge chunk right off, off the get-go. But again, a lot of our pump stations, we have 9 in the system. A lot of them haven't been touched in over 60 years. So they're due for a complete rehaul replacement, because we're trying to get each pump station radioed back to the water shop so we can see what's going on at each location in the city. So as we're upgrading these pump stations, we're installing new SCADA that will give us an eyes and ears at the one location instead of having to physically drive to each location to see what's going on.
Okay.
It's a long process.
And I'll be gone.
Okay, item
55.
All right, it's 53 or 54 were for the bond and authorization of the Mosley Pump Station.
Mm-hmm.
And 55 is our capital, request for capital transfer for department equipment. And we've listed out the equipment we're looking at purchasing for the upcoming year. Any questions on that?
But I have a different question, not on this item, something water department related.
Okay.
So,
Yes, yes, yes.
So with, when you do water main break, you know, and then you do the digging and then you gotta put back everything, the water department contract that out, right?
Not necessarily. We do a lot of our own in-house work. So our guys are out there for water main breaks, any time of day, any time of year, doing it.
Okay. The reason I brought that up is because I have, you know, and I think we spoke about this, I have a constituent that had a water main break right in their driveway. And thank goodness, after all of this, it was put together. But when they put it together, it was paved so high that by the time the pavement hit the grass, there's like a hole, and there's nothing, there's no dirt that was ever put on. And that's accident waiting to happen. Now, who do we talk to about that? I'm not gonna recommend the folks getting fired or anything, but.
Just reach out to me.
We already fired one. President Hudson just fired somebody.
Just reach out to me, send me the address. Our crews also do restoration of the cuts. So our crews that repair the water mains put back temporary restoration is what we call it. We have a secondary crew that does final and permanent restoration, which includes lawns, or, you know, if the pavement's too high, we'll take it out and make it lower so that way it blends in with the surrounding area.
No, I
So
think
feel
the
free to
pavement
reach
with
out
driveway
and,
is good.
yeah.
It's just when it hit the grass, I think when they did the digging, they never filled it up to a level where the grass and
Meets
the
the
pavement
pavement.
are even.
Yeah, so send that address over to me and we'll put it on the list. We have a little bit of a backlog, but we're gonna get to them.
Send him the address. Joe, could you send me a breakdown of the vehicles that you're replacing, please?
Yes, there's a list on the bottom here.
I see the list, but I don't see what you're replacing. Are you replacing a 2017
Oh, okay, yes,
SUV?
all the
I mean,
details,
you're-
you got it. I'll get all that detailed information over to you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, Madam President, with the exception of 35, 37, 38, 39, and 45, all other items are good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Hogan.
Thank you, President Hudson. I have items 56 through 59. 56, we're going to hold that for a committee meeting. And I want to talk to the administration a little bit about this. I am okay with the intent on this. I'm not okay. I favor the intent on this. It's just that there's some questions I have on implementation. So that's basically it. We'll have a committee meeting on this. 57, 58, that's Jeff. I think we discussed this last time, correct? And
good afternoon, councilors. Yes, 57 and 58 are applications from Syracuse University to rezone property at 195 Ainsley Drive, or a portion of property at 195 Ainsley Drive, to PID in order to expand the Ainsley subdistrict PID to include the rear portion of 195 Ainsley. And the purpose is for storage and parking.
And I hear that, but see, words confuse me a lot, because this says planned institutional district.
Correct.
Okay, so what does that mean? Institutional means.
As far as universities or hospitals.
So we're gonna rezone that to be institutional.
A planned institutional district.
Well,
correct. Yes, even under rezone, it's still going to be a planned institutional district, zoning district.
Because I'm a little confused, okay, because I know that area, you got John Deere, you got all those auto body shops, you got all that stuff back there, so you're gonna, and houses, so you're gonna change that to a planned institutional district?
A portion of the property, because Syracuse University has offices down at Ainsley and Jamesville, and a couple of years ago, they established the Ainsley Subdistrict PID for those offices.
Just an expansion. Okay.
And
Already.
this is allowing them to expand that Ainsley Subdistrict to include the rear portion of 193 Ainsley Drive.
But to her, only the portion that they own, right? Not the properties they don't own.
Correct.
So
There was a companion re-subdivision to split 193 Ainsley Drive into 2 lots. So the front portion of 193 Ainsley is going to remain whatever rezone has it going as. The rear portion is going to PID pending approval.
And I get what you guys are saying about an expansion, but my concern is this, and love SU, please understand that, but how much more are we going to put into a planned institutional district?
That is a question for the Common Council to wrestle. I do not have an answer to that
And
question.
you don't want us to wrestle it.
Yeah, because also I have, that neighborhood, I'm very familiar, actually, my parents own a house up there, and, my family, so there's a lot of, and that district just across the street, you go on Jamesburg you have all those houses, and then SU owns the land right in between, right across the street from Ainsley. Like, if we start calling this their district, like how is that building in that neighborhood you're talking about? Pretty huge, well, Latin schools right there and all that. How is that gonna affect it?
All I can say to answer your questions or concerns at this time is, I believe it was in 2020, I would have to go back and double check the year, but the Planning Commission and the Common Council approved the Ainsley Subdistrict. And that's, again, down by Jamesville and Ainsley. And it's where the SU commissary is, their planning and campus design office are all down there. They requested back then to establish a planned institutional district sub-district. It was approved. They are requesting now to expand that sub-district to include the rear portion of 193 Ainsley Drive. There have been other pursuits by the university to expand the overall Syracuse University district plan by adding other sub-districts, such as along Marshall and along University.
Jeff.
But they have to go through the Planning Commission and the Common Council in order to do so.
Jeff, thank you. Why don't we, because we just did the rezone thing, why don't we just, I'll hold this and we can educate ourselves a little more about this.
Thank you.
Okay, and then I have item 59. It's a special permit.
Special permit for a restaurant in a vacant tenant space down in Valley Plaza. It did include a waiver of the distance between residential districts and live entertainment. The Planning Commission granted that waiver based on mitigating factors affecting where within the restaurant live entertainment can set up and no speakers outside.
I'm familiar with the area and that particular spot.
Me too.
I don't know if Councilor Allen or Councilor Majuk, I mean, that's your district. Jake, do you want to weigh in here a little bit?
He's not holding it.
They what?
Yeah, good afternoon, Council. Jake Dishaw, Director of Code Enforcement. Just want to bring up that these applicants that are involved with this business have been before you prior, seeking a special permit at 91012 Park Street on the north side, which, to just refresh your memory, was an illegal after-hours and nightclub bar establishment that led to a lot of police activity and issues. I believe there was a homicide and other violent incidents. So just want to point out that these are the same applicants and the same business name, obviously in a different location down in the valley, in the Valley Plaza.
And this gentleman's he lives in Brooklyn, right? Correct?
No.
That's what it says on the, yeah. Well, that's his,
Yeah,
says on the back of his plane.
I believe, so the applicant on paper, the Stanley Snow, I believe, is in Brooklyn, but connected to 9, 10, 12 Park Street incidents.
Okay, so the law department's asked me that we're gonna go into executive session next.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We need more time to research it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll hold that, hold this, and then the 24th we'll go into executive session?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm ready, President. It's,
Thank you.
ready.
59.
Councilor Majok.
Thank you, Madam President. I have item 60 to 63. Chief?
Rich Shaw, First Deputy Chief of Police. First thing I got is the New York State Department of Homeland Security Emergency Services for 2023 Red Team exercises for an amount not to exceed $9,100. Red Team exercises are when we send police a team of undercover people into different businesses to try to see if they'll pick up on things that they should pick up on that would indicate there's possible terrorism involved or some kind of illegal activity. For example, we just did them. You'll go into a gun shop and you'll say things that should trigger the gun owner to go, something's not right here, I better call somebody, and see if they behave in that manner that you would expect. If not, it's more of a training. There's no legal ramifications. It's simply a training exercise.
Questions? Keep going, Chief.
61, agreement with the application agreement with the United States Department of Justice for 2023 Patrick Leahy Bulletproof Vest Partnership in an amount not to exceed $33,666. The funds will be used to purchase and equip Syracuse Police Department patrol officers with bulletproof vests. There is a local match of 50% of the total cost of the vest, which is $16,830.
How many vests is that, Chief?
I don't, 72, thank you.
Questions? Keep going, Chief.
Okay, 62, application agreement, onto our topic we had earlier a little bit. Of application agreement to and with New York State Dormitory Authority, also known as DASNY, through the State and Municipal Facilities Program, also known as SAM, under the COPS program, in an amount not to exceed $200,000. These funds will be used to purchase and install additional surveillance cameras, COPS cameras, at various intersections in the Onondaga Ave and Coolidge Street areas. No local match required. This is one of the grants we've been waiting
Let
on.
me ask you a question, Chief, right? Because as I'm reading this, it says additional cameras. So are there any parts of the city that does not have any cameras?
Are there parts of the city that don't have any cameras? Yeah.
So
I mean, I provided a map. I don't know it off the.
I'll
I don't know
try to
all.
pull it up. So we're putting additional in places that have them, but the ones that don't, we're still fighting to get them.
I'm not sure if I follow you.
There's areas, like Councilor Caldwell asked about, that does not have cameras.
Yeah.
But we're adding additional to areas that already have cameras.
Additional cameras to the cameras that we already have.
I get that. Okay.
How do we pick these two? Just curious.
Neighborhood groups apply for this, request this stuff,
So like a TNT neighborhood group?
something like that. So for the next one, and I wasn't involved with this one, but for the next one, it's gonna be this James Street area. The Sedgwick Neighborhood Watch Group is one that got the ball rolling with Assembly Magnarelli for that grant. It takes some community engagement. Is the way it's been working.
That started like 4 years ago at least, so that
That's
wasn't
old.
something that happened overnight. They've been talking about this forever.
I was a lieutenant when that conversation
Yep.
started.
Yep.
And now you're a chief.
It was more than 4 years since before Mayor Walsh, yeah.
Yeah, and the Coolidge one, I think it was only like my third year here when that one got started.
Yep. It is, that's kind of the process.
Because we're still using, the Lesky money.
Yeah,
And
so
he's
that's,
been gone a long time.
so I mean, that's just kind of the grant portion of it. We're starting to build some money in our capital budget that we can start looking at places where we can put cameras.
Councilman Joke, if I may, while we have the chief here, are we discussing this item or no?
Yes. So, Chief, can you talk about the SRO item?
Which item?
Waiver?
Oh, the SRO item? Okay, so for the waiver. So, we've been working with the Syracuse City School District. They want, and it's not on the agenda, I apologize, but it's been a lot of moving pieces here because we've been waiting on the Board of Education to do their part as well as the school district and the city. So, so the school district wants to hire 20 SPOs, retired Syracuse police officers, to put in the K through 8 and middle schools. They're going to pay for everything that they can pay for, which is most everything. We fully support it. The vote from the Board of Education, they fully supported it. There was all yeses. 2 members were not present that didn't vote, but there was no votes on that. So we're asking if you guys, you know. I'm sorry, I thought this was going to be at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's
$1,230,000.
yeah, but they're gonna foot, that's how much money they're gonna foot, it's not to exceed $1,230,000 that they're gonna pay for. There's some things that the school district can't buy, we're okay with it. It's mainly weapons type things that they're forbidden by state law to buy, those types of things.
So I know, sometimes the SRO conversation get quite sensitive, and, as we bring back retired officers, how do we go through that process? Because I know in my time when I went through the district, there were some amazing police officers that retire. Is there a process that you go
Yes.
through to bring them back? Or what is that?
Yeah, so it's a typical hiring process where we have to post the jobs. Hopefully we'll get enough interest in it. You have to be certified police officers with a pistol permit, so they are going to be armed. And then the hiring process is actually going to be interviewed. It's controlled by both the Syracuse Police Department and the school district. So they can have a say on who we put in the schools. So if we hire the SROs to be working for the police department, so if we're going to put them in the schools, the school district can say yes and no. They can say that, if this person's not working out, we don't want them in the schools anymore. They can say out of the schools. They can't fire them, but they can move them out of the schools, and we have to find another use for them, or we would have to fire them. But it's a partnership of who between the school district and the police department, who goes in the schools.
So,
questions?
Yeah, it says not to exceed amount 1.2. So, and school district is paying the entirety of that 1.2?
Pardon me?
Is the school district
Yes.
paying the entirety?
Yes.
Because in the letter it says that all other costs will be provided for in-kind by the city.
That's what I was talking about, like certain things the school district can't buy, like guns. They're prohibited by law. So we don't have a problem with that. We want them to be armed. We want them to be armed with what we trained them with.
Mhm.
And if they don't work out, they're still ours. They're
So
still
what,
gonna use
do
purpose
we know
for
what that cost will be?
I don't know what that cost will be, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Director Rudd might be able to shed some light, right, when he come, maybe, Monday, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, because you would have to get the full, you said you have 20 positions, right, for applicants to apply for. Hopefully you can
That's
fulfill
what
the
they're
20.
hoping for, yep.
So if you only get 16, and the numbers will vary and stuff like that, depending on how many you get, right?
Yeah.
Now, does it have to be a hard 20, or could it be?
20 is the max.
Okay.
Right now, hiring people's hard, right?
Right.
So we're hoping for 20, but that's max.
So Chief, I think what may help us is, could you break it down, what the
police department's gonna have to cover?
1.2 gonna be spent on? Is it the equipment, the time, and all of that? And then it would help us to see what in kind would look like.
Yeah. So the 1.2 is going to be paid for by the school district, and then I'll try to get a breakdown of that, and then I'll get you a breakdown of what the in-kind looks like financially before Monday.
So the 1.2 is gonna cover staff?
Staffing, it can cover a lot of things. Radios, it just can't cover weapons type objects.
Okay, yes.
There's some things prohibited by law that they can't cover. They would if they could.
Yeah. Just break that down for us
Yeah.
as best as you can.
I know another major item is going to be body worn cameras that we're going to pay for those.
Okay.
Another question, if I can, is Lateef Johnson Kinsey planning to work with them at all? Because I see reducing juvenile delinquency, neighborhood environment, et cetera?
I don't know if Pastor Kinsey's involved with that. I know former Chief Fowler is kind of overseeing that operation for us in the schools right now.
Okay.
And he'll pool whatever resources he can.
Thanks.
Other questions? Thanks, Chief.
Okay, thank you.
So you are putting this on as a waiver, right?
Thank you. Counselor Allen.
Thank you. I have items 64 through 69. 64, from my understanding, there's some additional commentary to be discussed here.
Hi, Councilors. Michael Collins, Commissioner, Neighborhood and Business Development. So what's in front of you was 64. Within the budget, you approved $750,000 of funding for operations for the land bank. This is the funding contract to be able to go into contract for those funds. There's one section in there that we're between law and the land bank. We're just working out the details. We'll have that to you by Friday. And if for some reason, so you've got time to review. If for some reason we didn't, we would just hold it. That's all.
What was that again?
So can you repeat it, please?
Sure. So it's the annual funding contract as the money is approved in the budget.
She was asking what are we waiting for Friday?
Just one section that has to do with the details around the transfer of the property.
Is that going to be a part of Exhibit A that a new Exhibit A?
It wouldn't. It would be an update to one section of it.
Okay, so a new Exhibit A.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Will we get a list of those properties, or is that list prepared yet, or you just know that that's the amount that we'll cover?
This is the funding contract. So the properties are what come in front of you every time that we come forward and say, hey, we'd like to, when Kimon presents the properties individually for transfer to the land bank. So yes, you will always get the properties to approve.
Okay, 23, 24, so is that July to
To
next
June 30,
June?
correct.
Okay, so we haven't seen those properties yet. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Right. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, in item 65.
Afternoon, Councilors. Michelle Sapansky, Deputy Commissioner of Neighborhood Development. Item 65 is an agreement with Yellow House Creative Services for marketing materials. These are specifically to be used to develop some branding and marketing and outreach documents for the Lead Hazard Control Office, which involves the functions of both Jake's team and then the lead grant program in our office. Just to give a little bit of background around the reason for the waiver, we were under the, basically we went with this particular vendor at the direction of the Director of Marketing and Communications, who had done a 3-bid process. This particular vendor had both the lowest quote for the services that were being provided, additionally is a WBE and has a particular expertise in working for governments and institutions. The purchase department had initially advised us that that this wouldn't have to go through an RFP process because of the type of services it was, and then ultimately when we went into contract, the county kicked it back. So we understand where the mix-up happened. Won't happen again, but we did our due diligence on it.
Because of the RFP process, correct?
Right, correct.
Right, correct. And I hear what you're saying, and I'm not against it because we need to handle the lead a little better than we've been doing. But necessarily the lowest bid is not always the best bid, first off.
Certainly.
And secondly, they're a WBE, right?
Hmm?
You said WBE.
A WB, yes.
Okay.
Items number 66.
Wait, Michelle, are they, who are they? Are they here?
They're based in Oswego, so.
Oswego? Okay.
Any other questions on that one? All right.
Did you want to ask? Ruth is behind you. Did you want to add something,
Yeah,
or you just?
Ruth knew, put this
I'm here for support, just in case you had any other questions, but she covered all.
Okay.
So did you say they have specific skills that is toward the government? That's why we selected them? 'Cause
So-
it seemed like we.
The reason this particular bidder stood out is because they've had an interest in working with the city, but they've worked with colleges, universities, and the city of Oswego in doing government type of communications. The lead ordinance is very, very, very specific. There are words they can't use, like they can't use abatement. There are a lot of words that they can't go into the area of, so it's just it's hard for someone who just does regular marketing to come in and simplify all that language, and these people already have experience doing government marketing. So seeing how their WBE, they had that experience, and their rates were similar but still lower, I felt that they would be the strongest partner for the city.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Items number 66 and 67 are companion pieces to appropriate funds in a not to exceed amount of $275,000 for professional services related to the development of a citywide housing strategy, and then to enter into the agreement with CZB, which is the same firm that we use for the first part of the plan. We would be looking to do work starting in August and run through up to the end of May. We have asked the CITA board to consider contributing up to half of the cost as a reimbursement for that. So that item is going to be going before their board, I believe, on Friday. But from a contracting perspective, we're writing it this way. We, from the indications that we have of the CITA board chair, she's indicated her support for that, but want to give them the time to formally consider that item. I don't know if there's any other further.
And you're going to meet with them when?
The CITA board meets on Friday, I believe.
Okay, so you would have information for us on Monday?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Why don't you ask them for the whole shot? I mean it. You know, I think maybe, because I think in the future, we're gonna be working with them we're gonna be aligned with them quite a bit.
There's the person. There's
Counselor,
the person.
good afternoon, Eric Ennis, Neighborhood and Business Development. Michelle and I have been working closely on this, and Counselor, to your point, CITA, we want to be able to support and help underwrite the cost of the study, but there's a significant portion of the study that is just focusing on residential, single, two-family home and neighborhood elements, where we also want CITA also being a part of a lot of the study around multifamily housing and a lot of the development that CITA is typically involved with. But because of the fact that this study is not just all encompassing of CITA related projects, we felt like it made sense to kind of do a 50-50 cost share. And I think that's something that's kind of built in as part of the budget plan.
Well, I think, obviously, as we had this discussion before, and I've had it with President Hudson and a few of the other counselors, that, you know, part of that rezone, you know, specifically about affordable housing.
Sure.
We're going to need CITA to be aligned with us on that, and they're going to pass that as part of their UTEP, correct?
So we are using rezone as that guide to help implement then what impact that will ultimately have on the uniform tax exemption policy. This study is really that way for CITA and the city to be aligned in that effort. So this study and this opportunity, I think, to do the 50-50 share is the perfect way to do that.
The reason I ask that is because obviously CITA, the way things seem to happen in the world now is that all these housing projects are going to have to go to CITA as far as to get a pilot agreement and all that.
Sure.
And they certainly have more teeth. They would have more teeth in their UTEP if they, when I assume they adopt what we just adopted as far as affordable housing.
Well, and so those affordability requirements for when you hit that threshold, like the CITA projects would also build that in, and certainly the enforcement is a big part of the conversation.
They would have to change their UTEP though, right? For that?
Correct,
Okay.
yes. And that's the thing, is that with the timing of rezone and the fact that that's just passed, we wanted to make sure that we were aligning what rezone is requiring and enforcing, and then how CITA will ultimately use that for its projects going forward.
Eric
So,
doesn't hurt to ask.
so I would just say that we're aligned on this, and I think we think this is a great way for CITA to be involved and be part of phase 2 of
Well,
the
I
study.
commend you for doing this because obviously that housing study that was just done is really terrific.
Yeah.
If we can really sort out our strategy.
Agree. And we're using that information that Michelle and the team have pulled together as well. So, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Item 68 is to appropriate ARPA funds for infill housing in an amount not to exceed $237,000 for 2 single-family homes that will be sold to income-qualified owner occupants. Those are located at 120 White Street and 920 West Onondaga Street. Jubilee Homes is going to be the primary developer on those projects, and they were previously approved as a authorized developer in the preferred developers RFP that we did several months back.
How many developers do we have?
In that particular pool, we have 11, yeah.
11.
Thank you.
But, so this is a prior infill site, right? Both
These
infill-
sites had been in the pipeline. This is one that had been kind of queued up for several months. Costs have changed since then, so That was the reason to allocate additional overages through the ARPA project.
Should we remove this last sentence to be completed by the end of 2023? Because that won't happen.
That should have been 2024, my apologies.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, that might have been me.
Could have just as easily been me. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So 2 single-family homes, and then how many rental units?
So for this particular item, it is just for the 2 single-family homes.
$11 million?
No, 237,000.
Oh, sorry, where's?
The 11 million was for the entire.
The entire umbrella
Okay,
of
got it.
all of the
This is just
Infill.
a segment. Okay, sorry.
Any
And
other
to be clear, the 237,000 will not build the 2 homes. This is just to make up for it.
Closing the gap.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the letter, it mentions some of the other sources that they would seek.
So we just gotta change the date on here for Monday. Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, and 69.
Jake Dishaw again, Director of Code Enforcement. Item 69 perhaps didn't have to be last but not least. If we could maybe talk about a future path to review minor encroachments, but here we go anyway. This is permission to...
What'd you say?
The same thing, maybe.
No, just that I think we should revisit the process of how we work with you and district counselors to review minor encroachments for applicants. Yeah, the meeting that we're supposed to start at 1 o'clock, but that's okay.
You've all been doing
All good. So this is just a permission for owners of a property located at 501 South Edwards in Eastwood. They are seeking permission for a 4-foot-high chain link fence to encroach 2 feet into the South Edwards Avenue right-of-way in their front yard.
Me?
Has anybody looked at this? Any?
That's fine by me.
Excellent.
I just want to add a little bit to that, that meeting that you are going to have, just to let the council know that most of you always, well, most of the council always wanted, the district council especially, wanted to know what was going on in their neighborhood. So encroachments, permissions was really, always been a really important
I agree with
item on the
city clerk
agenda.
on that. I want to know about it.
So may I suggest that we just add the district counselors to be able to comment on these applications as they come in, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, we have a meeting that was scheduled for today that we're going to use the 14 minutes we have left with Councilor Monto to, as a district counselor who's also on the Public Works Committee, to be in, to talk about a way that the council is comfortable, what the council is comfortable, the administration is comfortable, a way to relook at encroachments.
Well, you can work it out, Councilor Mantel, and then he can work it out the rest of the.
That's exactly the plan.
Right, Corey, that's
You're in
what-
my head.
Be the president.
No, that's what I was gonna ask you. I mean, wouldn't it be beneficial to actually have a conversation with all of the district counselors at
It
once?
would, yes, without having all of you, since we can't meet with you all at once, we're starting with small groups of counselors, talking through some of the concerns so that we can come to you with a proposal to react to rather than just an open forum on encroachments and we're not coming to the table with anything.
You know, I don't need an
We
open
talked about
forum, I
this in
just need the
leadership. I
district
don't know if
counselors to
anybody
be-
remembers, but, so. Great.
All righty, I-
President Hudson, I hate to do this, but I see the personnel director up there. Could you, Richard? I was informed by our retirees that there's because of the contract dispute between United Healthcare and St. John's Hospital.
St. Joe's.
Hospital, that the doctors might not be, the doctors up there might be out of network, correct?
Correct.
Frank Cleaver, where you at? Gone.
What's that?
Yep.
So in other words, retirees who got doctors up to St. Joe's might not be able to avail themselves of those doctors. So what is the administration going to do about the retirees?
So this is a contract dispute between St. Joe's and an insurance carrier. We use that insurance carrier for our retirees, so we're obviously very concerned about it. We did receive notice just before this meeting started that the two parties have agreed to an extension. So we are hopeful that they are going to be able to work it out. We'd rather not take a side because we see.
No, we don't need to take a side, but maybe we need to revisit it because our people are stuck in the middle of their conflict.
Agreed, no question. So we're going to see if, we're certainly monitoring it closely. We're having conversations with both sides, and we'll continue to do that. And we're going to continue to monitor what our retirees need.
To President Hudson's point, we don't have a side, but we do have a contract with UHC, right? United Healthcare.
No question.
You know, so, I mean, we expect them to manage this, and I hate to get calls from retirees freaking out that they can't get to the doctor.
Yeah. We agree. Just for your information, the last time this happened with UHC and Upstate, the Upstate made it clear that they would accept our retirees out of network, and St. Joe's vacillated on that, but has now capitulated and said that they would accept our retirees out of network, assuming the providers agreed to do that, which most providers I think would, and we will pay for that out of network. So we've got some solutions. Yep, we've got some solutions, but this is nerve-wracking. We want to make sure that our retirees are taken care of.
Is this impacting a big percent of our retirees or just
Yeah, a lot of folks use St. Joe's and the St. Joe's network. Yeah, it's a lot of folks. Yep.
All right, I need a motion to
Yeah,
adjourn.
so moved.
Second? All in favor?